Rome, a city of emperors. It stands today as a monument to its own glorious and often brutal past, yet no emperor has captured the imagination quite like Nero. Nero's story is one of intrigue, ambition, and ultimately tragedy. Was he truly a monster, a tyrant who reveled in the suffering of his people? Or was he a victim of circumstance, a ruler ill-equipped to shoulder the burdens of absolute power? Nero's birthright was a double-edged sword. Born Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus in 37 AD, he hailed from a long line of Roman aristocracy. His father, Gnaeus Domitius Ahenobarbus, claimed descent from Augustus himself. Nero's ancestors were known for their ruthlessness and ambition, traits that would later manifest in the young emperor. This legacy cast a long shadow on Nero's early life. It was a world where power was paramount, and the pursuit of it often came at a terrible price. Perhaps the most influential figure in Nero's early life was his mother, Agrippina the Younger. A woman of fierce intellect and unyielding ambition, Agrippina saw in her son a vessel for her own political aspirations. She orchestrated a marriage to her uncle, the Emperor Claudius, a man easily swayed by her charms and machinations. With Claudius under her thumb, Agrippina began to position Nero as the heir apparent. She used her influence to secure prestigious tutors for her son, including the renowned philosopher Seneca. Agrippina's relentless ambition knew no bounds, and she would stop at nothing to see her son on the throne of Rome. Under Agrippina's watchful eye, Nero received a rigorous education. Seneca, his tutor, instilled in him a love of philosophy, rhetoric, and the arts. But while Nero showed promise in these intellectual pursuits, the lessons of power and ruthlessness were not neglected. He witnessed firsthand the brutal realities of Roman politics. These experiences left an indelible mark on the young Nero, shaping his worldview and his understanding of power. These were the lessons that would guide him as he ascended to the throne. In 54 AD, when Nero was just 17 years old, Claudius died under mysterious circumstances. Rumors of poisoning orchestrated by Agrippina spread like wildfire through the city. Nero, groomed for this moment since childhood, was swiftly proclaimed emperor by the Praetorian Guard. His early reign offered a glimmer of hope for the Roman people. He enacted reforms, reduced taxes, and showed a willingness to listen to the Senate. Little did anyone know that this period of stability would be short-lived. The early years of Nero's reign were a deceptive calm before a devastating storm. While Rome enjoyed a period of relative stability and prosperity, a darkness was festering in the heart of the young emperor. Nero, once eager to please the Senate and enact reforms, grew increasingly distant from the affairs of state. He surrounded himself with artists, musicians, and actors, immersing himself in the world of entertainment and self-indulgence. The weight of empire, the burden of leadership, seemed to bore him. The whispers of his darker impulses, his growing paranoia and cruelty, began to circulate through the halls of power. Agrippina, the architect of Nero's rise to power, had envisioned a different future for her son. She had not orchestrated his ascension to the throne to be relegated to the sidelines. Agrippina craved power, and she intended to wield it through her son, the emperor. At first, Nero tolerated his mother's meddling, but as his confidence grew, so too did his resentment of her constant interference. The relationship between mother and son, once a bond forged in mutual ambition, began to fray. The simmering tension between Nero and Agrippina finally reached a boiling point in 59 AD. Frustrated by his mother's relentless interference and driven by a paranoia that whispered of plots against him, Nero made a chilling decision. He would eliminate the source of his troubles, severing the ties that bound him to his manipulative mother. Nero, with the help of his advisors, devised a plan as cunning as it was ruthless. He lured his mother to a seemingly harmless gathering, a banquet aboard a specially designed ship. The ship, rigged to collapse, broke apart, plunging its occupants into the dark waters. Agrippina, however, survived the initial disaster, but Nero sent assassins to finish what he had started. The assassination of Agrippina sent shockwaves through Roman society. It was an act of unspeakable cruelty, a transgression against the natural order. With Agrippina gone, there was no one left to restrain Nero's darkest impulses. He was free to indulge his every whim, to rule with an iron fist and a heart consumed by paranoia. The emperor, once perceived as a promising young ruler, had transformed into a tyrant. Rome, and indeed the world, would soon face the consequences of Nero's unbridled power. The year was 64 AD. Rome, the heart of a vast empire, pulsed with life. But on the night of July 18th, a spark, whether by accident or design, ignited a disaster that would forever scar the city's history. The fire, erupting in the merchant district near the Circus Maximus, spread with terrifying speed. Dry timber buildings, fanned by a summer wind, became blazing infernos. Panic gripped the city as the inferno raged out of control. The narrow, winding streets, usually teeming with life, became death traps as terrified citizens were choked by smoke and trampled in the desperate rush to escape the flames. It seemed as if the very heart of the Roman Empire was being consumed by an insatiable beast. As the flames devoured Rome, rumors spread like wildfire through the smoke-filled streets. Many believed that the fire was no accident. Whispers of arson, of a deliberate act to punish the city, circulated among the terrified populace. And at the center of these whispers stood a name, Nero. Some whispered that he had ordered the fire set to clear land for his planned opulent palace, the Domus Aurea. The image of Nero fiddling while Rome burned, though likely apocryphal, has endured for centuries as a symbol of callous indifference and tyrannical rule. The Great Fire of Rome raged for 6 days and nights, leaving an unimaginable path of destruction in its wake. When the flames finally subsided, much of the city lay in ruins. Tens of thousands were homeless, their lives and livelihoods reduced to ashes. Rather than focusing on rebuilding the homes and businesses of his people, Nero saw the fire as a chance to reshape Rome according to his own grandiose vision. He seized vast tracts of land, displacing thousands who had already lost everything. On these charred ruins, he would erect a monument to his own ambition, the Domus Aurea, the Golden House. The Great Fire of Rome left an indelible scar on the city's psyche. Fear and resentment simmered among the displaced and grieving populace. Nero, already facing criticism for his extravagant lifestyle and perceived indifference to the people's plight, found himself in a precarious position. He needed a way to deflect blame, to appease the growing unrest, and to solidify his grip on power. He needed a scapegoat, and he found one in a small, relatively obscure religious sect, the Christians. Their beliefs, centered around a single, unseen god, were alien and unsettling to a populace accustomed to the pantheon of Roman deities. The Christians, with their strange customs and unwavering faith, became a convenient target for Nero's machinations. They were a small, marginalized group, lacking the power or influence to mount a significant defense against the emperor's accusations. Nero, with the help of his advisors, launched a vicious propaganda campaign against the Christians. They were accused of setting the fire, their supposed motive being a desire to see Rome, the seat of pagan power, consumed by flames and replaced with their own divine kingdom. Rumors spread like wildfire through the city, fueled by fear and resentment. These accusations, though baseless and absurd, found fertile ground in a population desperate for answers and eager to find someone to blame for the city's suffering. The accusations against the Christians quickly escalated into a full-blown persecution, one of the earliest and most brutal in the history of the fledgling religion. Nero, determined to crush this perceived threat and to solidify his own position, unleashed a reign of terror upon Rome's Christian community. Arrests were swift and indiscriminate, sweeping up men, women, and children alike. Imprisonment, however, was often only the prelude to a more gruesome fate. Yet, despite the horrors inflicted upon them, many Christians refused to renounce their faith, clinging to their beliefs with a fervor that both baffled and enraged their Roman persecutors. Christians were condemned to die in the most horrific ways imaginable, their deaths designed not only to punish but also to entertain and to serve as a warning to others. As Nero retreated further into his world of fantasy and cruelty, the Roman Empire teetered on the brink. The cost of his extravagance, his lavish games and grand construction projects drained the imperial coffers. Taxes rose, further burdening a populace already struggling to rebuild their lives after the fire. Resentment towards Nero, simmering since the Great Fire, erupted into open rebellion. In 68 AD, Gaius Julius Vindex, the governor of Gaul, raised the standard of revolt. He accused Nero of tyranny, of squandering the empire's wealth, and of violating the traditions of Rome. Vindex's rebellion found fertile ground in the provinces where Nero's excesses had alienated even those loyal to Rome. What began as a regional uprising quickly spread throughout the empire. Even the Praetorian Guard, his once unwavering protectors, abandoned him, sensing the winds of change. Isolated and abandoned, Nero's carefully constructed world crumbled around him. The Senate, once cowed by his power, declared him a public enemy, sentencing him to death as a tyrant. His former allies, sensing his imminent downfall, deserted him, eager to secure their own positions in the new order. In June of 68 AD, with Roman forces closing in on Rome, Nero fled the city. Accompanied by a handful of loyal servants, he sought refuge in a villa outside the city walls. But his escape was short-lived. The pursuing soldiers were relentless, their footsteps echoing the emperor's impending doom. Trapped and facing certain capture, Nero chose to take his own life rather than face the humiliation of public execution. According to legend, as he pressed a dagger to his throat, he uttered the words, "What an artist dies in me." With that, the reign of terror that had gripped Rome for over a decade came to an end. Nero's death, though self-inflicted, did not bring peace to Rome. His demise marked the end of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, plunging the empire into a year of civil war known as the Year of the Four Emperors. The scars of Nero's reign, however, ran deep, forever etching his name in the annals of history as Rome's most notorious emperor. Nero's reign, though relatively brief, left an indelible mark on the Roman Empire. His name, forever linked to tyranny, extravagance, and cruelty, has echoed through the corridors of history for centuries. The echoes of his reign can be heard in the whispers of tourists who marvel at the ruins of the Colosseum, imagining the gladiatorial combats and public executions that took place within its walls. Was Nero truly the monster that history has painted him to be? Was he a madman driven by an insatiable lust for power and a callous disregard for human life? Or was he a product of his time, a ruler ill-equipped to handle the immense pressures of absolute power in a world where violence and intrigue were commonplace? The truth, as with most historical figures, likely lies somewhere in between these extremes. Nero was a complex figure, a man of contradictions. He was capable of both great cruelty and surprising compassion. He could be charming and witty one moment and then erupt in a fit of rage the next. He was a patron of the arts, a lover of music and poetry, yet he presided over one of the most brutal persecutions of early Christians in Roman history. His legacy is a cautionary tale about the corrupting influence of absolute power, the dangers of unchecked ambition, and the fragility of human nature. Nero's story reminds us that even the most powerful empires, built on centuries of conquest and glory, can be brought to their knees by the actions of a single flawed individual.